Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We will present about inflation in Zimbabwe.
Definition of inflation. Inflation is a situation where there is persistent and rapid increase in the general price level. Inflation is caused by increase in supply of money. There's too much money chasing after few goods and make the situation of chronic excess aggregate demand over aggregate supply. Inflation reduces the purchasing power of money. Introduction of the country. Zimbabwe is one of the countries in the South Africa. The country located in Southern Africa, which is in the middle of Zambia, Botswana, South Africa, and Mozambique. Zimbabwe's population is around 16,670,000 and the country's capital is Harare. Zimbabwe is known as the fastest increase inflation rate in the world records in 2018 until 2024. In recent history, the inflation rate in Zimbabwe averaged 43% from 2009 until 2023, reaching up to 786% in May 2020, due to a combination of factors such as mismanagement, corruption, and controversial land reform policy. Zimbabwean dollar rose rapidly and inflation peaked at 79.6 million % in November 2008. Zimbabwe's economy has been affected by inflation rates that continue to rise every year due to the hyperinflationary crisis caused by former Zimbabwean President Robert Mugabe. It is estimated that during 2018, there is 10.6% trends or statistics on Zimbabwean inflation. Zimbabwe is one of the natural capital in South Africa which can make significant growth potential. Recent advances in economic policy, Zimbabwe could achieve their target, which is to be an upper middle income country status for 2030. First one, Zimbabwe's main income or focuses are on agriculture and agribusiness industry, including cotton, horticulture, meat, dairy, and sugar. Additionally, Zimbabwe's tourism and mining has significant potential in short term of economic profit. Secondly, the growth rates of 6.1% in 2022 and 5.3% in 2023, Zimbabwe is one of the fastest growing economies in Southern Africa, resulting from an expansion in agriculture, mining, and remittance-induced service growth. Real GDP growth is expected to decline to 2% in 2024 as a result of climate change that causes drought, lower mining prices, and macroeconomic instability. Ongoing power shortages have contributed to increased industrial growth and disrupted winter irrigation. The economic growth is expected to recover around 6% in 2035. Thirdly, on average, 70% to GDP, around 40% of total export earning, and macroeconomic vulnerabilities and difficult business environment raise the cost of doing business, which is turn limit structural transformation and investment and increase the informal sector. This could affect Zimbabwe's economic gain to losses in future.
Next, we will move to issues related to inflation in Zimbabwe. First, currency breakdown. Inflation remains sticky and jumped 175.8% in June from 86.5% a month ago. Part of the recent re-acceleration in inflation was triggered by the Zimbabwe dollar slide, which plunged 85% in the 2 months through May and pushed up import costs. Although inflation edged lower in July, it still remains significantly elevated. Second, supply chain disruption. Transportation bottlenecks, aging infrastructure, and erratic electricity supply has disrupted production and supply chains across Zimbabwe. These factors limit the availability of goods and push up prices. The combination of domestic inefficiencies and global supply chains challenge was worse inflation, particularly in the food and energy sectors where prices are most volatile. Lastly, external factors. Global commodity price fluctuation and climate change have added layers of complexity to Zimbabwe's inflation crisis. The country relies heavily on agriculture export to tobacco, but recurring droughts and erratic rainfall linked to the climate change have reduced output. These external shocks, combined with domestic vulnerabilities, underscore the interconnectedness of Zimbabwe's economy with global markets. Next is impacts inflation in Zimbabwe. First, food prices. The food commodity that experienced the sharpest price increase was vegetable oil, as Zimbabwe is mainly dependent on imports. 96% of its sunflower oil is imported. There is also reduced production among communal farmers occasioned by soaring inflation. Second, input prices. Zimbabwe used around 800,000 tons of fertilizer a season, with over 70% of the fertilizers used being imported as raw material and finished product, thus exposing the market to the effect of global shortage and price volatility.
Solution for inflation of Zimbabwe. Monetary policy by the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Interest rate adjustment. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe use interest rates to control inflation. When inflation is high, the central bank may increase interest rate, making borrowing more expensive, which reduce consumer spending and business investment. This can help reduce demand, driving inflation. Conversely, lowering interest rate can stimulate economic activity when inflation is low or deflation is concerned. Open market operation. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe conducts open market operations where it buys or sells government securities to manage the money supply. By selling securities, the central bank can absorb excess money in circulation, thus controlling inflationary pressure. Currency stabilization and exchange rate policies. One of the significant causes of inflation in Zimbabwe is the depreciation of the Zimbabwean dollars. To counter this, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has employed measures like currency reform and the introduction of a more stable currency. For example, the government reintroduced the Zimbabwean dollar in 2019 after a period of dollarization. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe also intervenes in the foreign exchange market to stabilize the currency and reduce the impact of important inflation. Foreign exchange auctions. To control exchange rate volatility and manage foreign currency receipt, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe operates a foreign exchange auction system. This system helps stabilize the value of the Zimbabwean dollar by determining an official exchange rate through periodic auction, which reduces the impact of black market rates on inflation. Second policy is fiscal policy by the government of Zimbabwe. Reducing budget deficits. One of the main causes of inflation in Zimbabwe has been the government's excessive borrowing, which has led to the printing of money. To combat this, the government needs to reduce fiscal deficits and avoid excessive borrowing. Reduce deficits mean the government spend it within its means, which limit inflationary pressure that arises from the creation of money. Taxation and public spending. The government may use tax policies to control inflation. For instance, increasing tax on luxury goods or non-essential items can reduce demand, helping to control inflation. Additionally, cutting unnecessary public spending and improving efficiency in government programs can help keep inflation under control. Debt management. Efficient management of public debt is crucial for inflation control. Zimbabwe has faced challenges in managing its debts, and excessive debt accumulation leads to inflation. The government needs to adopt policies to limit borrowing and reduce reliance on printing money. Last, conclusion. To combat inflation, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe and the government have employed a range of policies. These include adjustment to interest rate, currency reforms, and measures to stabilize the exchange rate, such as the introduction of foreign exchange option. Fiscal policies aimed to reduce budget deficit and improving public sector efficiency are also central to control inflation. Additionally, the government has attempted to manage inflation through price control and subsidies, although these are often being met with mixed results. In conclusion, while Zimbabwe has made strides in addressing inflation through monetary reforms and fiscal discipline, the country still faces significant hurdles in achieving long-term price stability. A combination of effective currency management, structural reforms, and economic diversification will be key to managing inflation and restoring confidence in the Zimbabwean economy. The path forward will require careful policy coordination, sustained efforts to improve productivity, and strategy to build investor confidence, which will ultimately help stabilize inflation and promote sustainable economic growth.